All right, we're ready to keep going with this whole thing. I told you in our last session that when God speaks to you, he typically will speak to you 90% one way and the other 10% in these other ways. 90% of the time he's going to speak to you out of the Bible. You know, you want to hear from God, trust me, he's not going to say anything other than what agrees with what's in the Bible. Now, and it will be in English, and it will typically be in your voice and in your own voice, like your conscience. And you'll know that it's him not by the sound of what he says, but by the content. He won't ever tell you to take somebody and beat them up with a baseball bat and steal their wallet. You know, he won't do that. He'll typically tell you, look, the guy dropped his $20 bill. They're trying to have a great day. Why don't you take the 20 and give it back to him? That's kind of how God will do it. Now, 90% he'll speak to you out of the Bible. He'll speak to you with your own voice, like your conscience, and you'll know that it's him by the content, right? Not by the sound. Now, the God that understand this, God is not from the United States. So he may not speak to you in English. He's under no obligation to speak to you in English. He's not from here. We're from here, but he's not. He's not, let's say you're listening to this and you're in Germany. He's not obligated to speak to you in German. German isn't his native tongue, as it were. He's from heaven, right? So he's not obligated to use some sort of an earthly language to speak to you. So, like I said, 90% of the time it'll be in your language through the Bible. The other 10% of the time he may use something like a vision or a dream. You may be dreaming and he'll give you your answer to your situation, exactly what you need to do in a dream. Do it. If he says do it, do it. He may give you a vision. So dreams and visions I put in the same category. And so he may give you a vision about how something is going to go. And the interesting thing is you may not even recognize it at the time that he gives it. You usually will recognize it when the situation comes upon you and it feels like a deja vu. You're like, whoa, I just did haven't I been here before? Yeah, you have. That's your indication that God is doing something in your life or that something has come together in a way and at a time that he's looking to do it in your life. So he will typically use English in the Bible, but he can use visions and dreams. He also can use what I call impressions. There's times where people say, "Man, I just feel like I should call Uncle Joe." You know, I just had him on my heart today. I just feel like I should call Uncle Joe. You call Uncle Joe, you have a great time, and then a week later he passes away, and you're glad that you talked with him. That's because God gave an impression. It wasn't a voice, hear ye, call Uncle Joe. It wasn't like that. You just kind of felt like you should. There's some times where everybody says, come on, let's get ready, let's go out. We're gonna have a great time, this, that, and the other. Whoa, let's go. And you're just like, now you're usually the party person. You're really like ready to go celebrate and enjoy your friends. Today you're like, I feel like I should just chill. I think I should just take it easy. I think I'm gonna stay home. They're like, what are you talking about? You're usually the life of the party. You're like, I know. I just feel like I should just rest. That's and all of a sudden you hear back from your friends that there was this whole big party, this whole big commotion started. There was this whole big thing, and the police were everywhere. And you're like, man, I'm glad I didn't go. That's because God was speaking an impression to you not to go. It wasn't a voice. It was just like, I don't feel like I should go. That's an impression. There are times when the Lord will speak to you, thirdly, in coincidence. Now let's look at the word coincidence. Co means two. Incident is some sort of a happening. A coincidence is when two things are happening at the same time. Like let's say you have a coworker. A coworker is somebody who works where you work, in the place that you work, and you kind of work together at the same time. It's a coworker. Um, a co-pilot. A co-pilot flies the plane with the pilot. They both fly it together. That's a co-pilot, two pilots. Well, coincidence is two incidents happening at the same time. That's kind of like weird. That's the feeling. Give you an example of a coincidence. A couple of weeks ago, I felt like I should buy a car for my wife. So I went to just see if I could find a good deal. I went to Craigslist And I looked up the kind of cars that I wanted, really cool cars. And when I was looking at this particular one, I just felt like the Lord was saying, take over this guy's car payments. So nice car, beautiful car. So I don't know this guy. So I shoot him an email through Craigslist that I'm interested in buying the car from him or taking over his car payments, whatever's best for him. So I don't know this guy. So anyway, this guy calls me back later that day. Well, he emails me back later that day. And he says, wow, in his email, sounds interesting. Give me a call. And he gives me his phone number. So I give the guy a call, let him know what I'm up to, this, that, and the other. He's really excited to hear from me. But I'm like, what's going on, man? And he's like, this is so weird. I'm like, tell me about it. He's like, well, over the weekend, I was at a marriage conference all weekend in this luxury place in southeastern Wisconsin, southwestern Wisconsin. Beautiful place. And he said, while I was there, I realized that my family is growing and I would like for my wife to stay at home and help raise our kids as opposed to putting them in daycare and the expensive daycare. So, but he was saying, but my wife needs to work because we have this car that we're paying for, among other things, but we need the income from my wife. So he's like, if we didn't have this car, she could be free. And he's prayed to the Lord, Lord, give me a way out of this car note, this car situation, so that my wife can come home. Well, anyway, when he gets home and he sees my email, it's like, whoa, this is exactly what I prayed for. So when I talked to the guy, I said, let's get going. Let's take care of the deal. Let's do it. He said, well, let me check with this, and let me check with my bank, and let me check this, and let me call these. I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. Don't check with 500,000 other people when the Lord gives you something. You prayed, and all of a sudden, coincidence, a guy calls that you don't know, says he wants to take over your car payment, this, that, and the other. Jump on that, man. Don't. When the Lord gives you something like that, usually it's a window. It's an opportunity. Learn how to take advantage of opportunities now, not next week, next time after you call and check with everybody. Now is the day of salvation, is what the Bible says. Today is the day of your salvation. Jump on it now. So when he gives you a coincidence like that, if in any way possible, take advantage. So what do we say? The Lord will speak to you typically when he speaks to you. He'll speak to you 90% of the time through the Bible. When he speaks to you, he will also speak to you in your own voice. It'll sound like your conscience. It won't be like somebody else's voice. It won't be a big booming voice out of heaven. Typically, it'll be your voice, that type of thing. Also, you will know that it's God, not by the sound, but by the content of what's being said. All right? Now, that's 90% of the way. The other 10%, the Lord will use dreams and visions. He can use impressions, and he can use coincidence. These are the ways that God will speak to you. Today, I want you to hear from him today regarding your particular situation. I don't want this to be just like theory. I want you to have the answers today to the issues that are facing your life. So if you know somebody that's going through something, here's another thing I want to say. I live in America. If you're walking down the street, you go, hey, how you doing? Fine. You go to the grocery store, hey, how you doing? Oh, fine. You go to work, how you doing? Oh, great. Everybody's great. I want you to know, everybody who says they're doing great are not doing great. People just say that kind of as a response. They're not doing great. So if you know somebody who may be struggling in their physical body with some sort of an illness or sickness or went to the doctor or whatever, you may not know they went to the doctor and got this diagnosis today. So you don't know. You may know somebody who's struggling with their relationship. Maybe they just received a text message from their mate that it's over. Text message, email, not even in person. You don't know. Somebody may be hurting today. Somebody may have gotten the pink slip. I remember once I studied and gained a position in the financial area, in the mortgaging area, and I studied. And there was a time where I got my license and everything in that area to be a mortgage broker. And there was a waiting period between the time that I got my license and the time that I could step into the big money. Well, the day came that I could step into the big money, and I was ready. I got to work early that day just so I could enjoy it. But when I got there that day, the regional boss was there, and he fired us all, closed the doors on the business. We never saw it coming. It was completely a surprise. You know, you never know what somebody's going through. So you know that somebody needs to hear from God. You know that you don't even know. tweet this link to everybody. You never know. Facebook this information. Link it. Send it to LinkedIn, Facebook. Put it on your Facebook wall. Get it to the people that you know because you don't know what they're going through. A lot of times they don't tell you until it's too late. So I'll see you on the other side. We're going to talk a lot more about hearing God's voice, you hearing him today. Talk to you in a little bit. See you on the other side.